House, end of an ugly evening in Fenway Park for the Orioles, but not a bad effort for Dylan Bundy. Luke Jones joins us here to talk about I would say a forgettable evening, right? Like the defense won't be this bad this often, but it was a little alarming, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you play too many games like this over the course of 162, it's going to be a long season. So I'm with you. I think. I mean, we've talked a lot about the Orioles' corner outfield defense. I mean, that's certainly something that has been a story for a couple years. But one of the calling cards for this team, we've talked so much about the home run, we've talked so much about the bullpen, but infield defense. Really from the time that Manny Machado was called up in August of 2012, their infield defense collectively has been exceptional. It wasn't in the seventh inning on Tuesday night. That's putting it mildly. J.J. Hardy just boots a routine, easy double play ball for Darren O'Day, of all people, a guy that has clearly struggled early in the season, a guy who needed a good outing and should have had a good outing if not for that play. And then, the next batter, a pop fly to shallow center field, and Jonathan Scope calls off the outfielders and doesn't make the catch. So, that right there, Darren O'Day gets 3 outs in a matter of a few pitches and has nothing to show for it, and then, struggled a little bit after that. I think anyone who has to get, 5 outs in an inning, very few are going to survive in that scenario.
At Fenway Park, against that offense.
Against that offense, right. I mean, you're begging for absolute doom when you do something like that, and, lost in the shuffle. The Orioles have scored 2 runs over their last 16 innings. I mean, you score 1 run at Fenway Park, and look, Drew Pomerantz is good. Give him some credit, but at the same time, you got to score some runs when you go to Fenway, especially knowing how good that Boston lineup is, even without David Ortiz. So, you add all that up, I'll buy the fact that they lost 8-1, and it was a pretty miserable night because that's what we saw.
Well, I mean, they're on a 2-game losing streak, and, it's time to start nitpicking this issue and that issue because that's what we do around here. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of praise to give them right this moment other than they're 4-2 and they're in first place, and that should be good enough. But on a one-by-one basis, and we got a 1-week sample size here, whatever it's been, 6 games, Scope doesn't look sharp, right? I mean, just the way he's swinging the bat, defensively. I mean, this has been a rough week for Jonathan Scope to sort of acclimate to all of this. And this is where, if we were in Boston or New York, we'd be damning him or damning the World Baseball Classic, or he did fly to Korea last month, or we'd be making some sort of excuses. He's a guy to me that, as I look at the Red Sox and I see these ascending players, Benintendi, Betts, Bogarts. I mean, I know Bradley's not around right now, but the guys that need to be getting better, Scope needs to have a better year this year than last year, and he had a pretty good year last year. He's been scuffling this week, and has come to the plate with some runners in scoring position, and hasn't had great at-bats, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, he's struggled. Overall, I'm not worried about Jonathan Scope, but he clearly has struggled. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's hitting, 105. He did have the Orioles' lone RBI, but it came on just a ground ball that wasn't hit with any kind of authority. Avoided a double play at least, but he struggled. I think defensively he's had some hiccups. There's no doubt about that. Again, on my list of concerns, that's probably still not very high. Other than just 6-game sample size. Everyone in that lineup's going to struggle and look bad at some point over a 6-game period, frankly, probably over a longer period than that, over the course of the next 6 months. But he's definitely struggled. There's no doubt about that. How much of that can you attribute to World Baseball Classic or whatever it might be?
I'm not. I'm just saying, if I were the jerk in the media in Boston and New York, that's what they would be talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's enough time, and keep in mind, it's not as though he played into the championship game. I mean, they got back, and even though even the U.S. and Puerto Rico, I mean, they still had a good 2 weeks to get back into spring training. And
I've flown back and forth across the international date line. You sleep a little bit, you drink some water, you recover, and then you stop making excuses for it.
Right. So, but overall, again, on my list of concerns, I mean, Jonathan Scope, he's in his fourth full major league season at this point. We know he's not the most disciplined hitter. That's putting it mildly.
But that's got to improve. I mean, that's the issue I have with Adam Jones is it has to improve at some point. It just does. You have to be getting better at it. Otherwise, you're going to be getting worse at it. I mean, it's as simple as that. And for a young guy like him, he's going to be in the big leagues 10, 12, 15 years, whatever it's going to be. You'd like to think at 30 he's going to be better at that part of the game. If he's going to become a better player, he's going to have to become better at it because he's going to get exploited by veteran pitchers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's never going to become a guy who walks 70 times. I mean, that's just not going to happen. That's not in his skill set. We talk about this all the time. Reaction time at the plate and plate discipline. It's really easy for all of us just to watch guys and say, well, you're swinging at a ball there.
As Buck would say, they're major league pitchers.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the guys who are better in plate discipline. I think their bodies, they just have better reaction time. I mean, you're talking about a couple tenths of a second that you have to decide, and some guys recognize pitches better than others, and I think you're not talking out of turn saying that Jonathan Scope doesn't have that skill. Now, that said, he'd really stand to benefit from improving at least somewhat in that category. And you mentioned Adam Jones. I mean, Adam Jones has had times where he's better in that department. He had a career high in walks last year. I mean, relative for him, now to anyone else it's not much, but relative to him it was some improvement. So, I mean, that's the thing that's holding Scope back more than anything else. I mean, how he's swinging the bat right now, I'm not as concerned about that, but he very much is a hitter who his ceiling is very much stunted if he's going to walk as little as he does, and if he's going to just not have as many lengthy, productive at-bats as he could have. So, that's the story on him. It's been the story on him since he arrived, and that's something that you'd like to at least see some incremental improvement over the next couple years, or you do wonder if this is about as good as he's going to get.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, and then let's keep going through the problems here. Is Trey Mancini a Major League Baseball player, Luke, in your opinion?
I think so. I don't know about the whole outfield experiment. I think he did a respectable job in front of the Green Monster on Tuesday night. I mean, right now the formula for him is to start against left-handed pitching. I mean, he hit 3 home runs in 10 or 11 plate appearances against lefties last year. I mean, he's definitely got pop. There's no doubt about that, and I think everyone could see the charge that he put into that double to deep right center field. I mean, that ball probably goes out in a lot of parks, just knowing how big that area is at Fenway Park. Ended up being a double, but I mean,
he's a big kid. He looks the part. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't. To answer your question, I think he absolutely is a major league player. Now, is he a guy who's going to be a starter for 162 games and eventually be a regular player? That remains to be seen. I mean, the defense is a big question. He clearly is not going to be playing first base. DH is locked up for the next few years with Trumbo re-signed. So, he's going to have to be an outfielder if he's going to be with the Orioles.
Well, if they believed he was Trumbo, they would have saved themselves a lot of money and just played him, right? I mean, literally, like, their assessment of this, and I know the old man signed Chris Davis, and that really wasn't, part of Duquette. I mean, that's why, judging the organization at any point when the old man woke up and rolled over and gave Chris Davis $150 million against sort of everybody's best judgment on the baseball side, which is one of the meddling parts of this thing that we don't talk about Angelos meddling anymore, but this is one of those things where, Mancini may be at first base right now. He might be better than Chris Davis by next year, right? I mean, given the arc of which direction these guys are going, but I don't think this guy's ever really going to be given a fair shake, right? Unless he can really play the outfield, he's going to bang around here in some sort of weird Nolan Rymel, and they love Nolan Rymel, but I don't think Trey Mancini will be in and out of the organization 3 times in the next 8 years. But it probably depends on whether he spends the summers with Brady Anderson or not. But we don't see him, and when we see him, he looked a little overmatched to me, quite frankly, which is why I asked that. But to your point, here's a guy that's been getting 600 at-bats a year, and this year they've looked at him and said, well, you might get 200. Just warm up over there a little bit, unless we send you down to the minors and he doesn't want to go. It's kind of an awkward situation anytime a guy gets blocked a little bit. I mean, remember when Gausman couldn't get in the rotation?
Yeah, and to revisit the question, I mean, I don't think I'm not as confident in Trey Mancini in saying that they shouldn't have re-signed Chris Davis or Mark Trumbo. I mean,
but they could have saved money that would have bought him pitching or
yeah,
like that. That's where I am with it. That if you have if you really believed in him, why have you signed Alvarez, Davis, Trumbo for all the money if you believed you had an emerging guy? I mean, they didn't do that at second base because they believed in Jonathan Scope, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, when I say major league player, that might mean that he is a better version of Nolan Reimold. I mean, I'm not ready to say he's going to be a 35 home run guy, and if you're going to be a first baseman, you kind of have to be that unless you're exceptional with the glove. So, I mean, as far as where they are with Mancini, I mean, we'll see how this plays out. I mean, to be honest, I'm not convinced he's going to be on the roster long term just because they're going to need a fifth starter. Joey Rickard's going to come back. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, really over the next week or so, and how he figures into that, how Craig Gentry figures into that. I mean, it remains to be seen. But in the case of Mancini, I can say I'm impressed that he hasn't embarrassed himself in the outfield. And I don't mean that as a knock on him. It's just that he's never played there before until this offseason when he started taking fly balls. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean,
and no one would take a 6'4" guy and say, "Go play left field." They'd say, "Go play first base," right?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what they would say when you're 16, right?
Right. But he's pretty athletic. There's no doubt about that, and he's hit at every level. So I mean, if he can play a respectable corner outfield spot, and let's face it, I mean, the bar isn't really high in that department as far as corner outfield for the Orioles the last couple of years, and that's something that I've taken issue with. Adam Jones has taken issue with that when asked about it, but I think for now, give him some opportunities against left-handed starters. I still don't want to see him in there at the expense of Hyun-Soo Kim or Seth Smith. I think those are clearly their best options against right-handed starters. But if he can hit, and that's going to be the big key. I mean, he's got to hit. You can't pursue this experiment with him in the outfield if he's not going to hit. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think Trey Mancini can be a contributor at the major league level. I'm not sure if that means an everyday player, a platoon guy, bat off the bench. I think that's still very much evolving, and that remains to be seen.
Luke Jones joining us here. He is Baltimore Luke. You can always email him, luke@WNST.net. He will be monitoring all things Orioles as I head off to Toronto. The Orioles are in Toronto this weekend. I'll be in Toronto next week for the Caps, and Ed Frankovic and I will be on the scene at the Verizon Center. We're also going to be monitoring all things Wizards as they get into this thing and the NFL draft, and we've been doing a lot of draft talk around here. But from an Orioles perspective, I think the biggest concern any Oriole fan should have for this season and this summer, as far as guys in the rotation, guys in the lineup, where is J.J. Hardy? Is J.J. Hardy going to make it? That would be my question for this, and I know fans have been about this. And, look, he's a guy that's been counted in and counted out and is back, and he has a crazy $14 million option next year, and Machado is shortstop heading into option year. It's very, very entangled, but for our purposes, his defensive skills at an advanced age and his bat speed and batting ninth and trying to hide him there. Is he going to be a guy who's going to struggle with the Mendoza line this year? And, I think of all the things other than third, fourth, fifth starter, which I think we should all be concerned about that, in the lineup, I'm not worried about Adam Jones, even though he jaked that double, which was a disgrace, quite frankly, especially given where that ball was hit and that he turned the Jets off before he got to first base. Machado's hitting 200. He'll be fine. Trumbo Davis, I'm good with. I even like Seth Smith as a major league. I mean, I wouldn't argue that he's a major league baseball player. With J.J. Hardy, boy, diminishing skills are hard to watch, difficult to discuss, and I'm sure if you're Buck or you're Dan Duquette and you're inside the organization, because they know it better than we do, they will recognize where the hill is and where the tip of the hill and the other side is, and I think they all like J.J. Hardy, but this better get better. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, and I mean, You wonder if the back is still an issue for him. I mean, he doesn't look like he's moving very well.
Dude, the back's always going to be an issue for him, right?
Yeah, and that's something he's managed. I mean, he's managed that over the course of, even when he was a 30 home run hitter. I mean, he had times with the Orioles, go back to 2011, 2012, 2013, where he occasionally would have some back spasms. Had a longer bout of it this spring. Really cost him about half of spring training, and the rest of the time you're playing catch up. And for a 34-year-old middle infielder, that's a challenge. So I think it's, I'm hesitant to draw too many conclusions based off of 6 games. In fact, I was talking to someone even over the course of Tuesday night, and they were saying that they thought Matt Wieters looked terrible in spring training for the Nationals this year, and he's off to a big start with the bat. So you never really know, especially when you're talking about some older players. But when they are older, you do start to question, okay, how much of this is you're just off to a slow start, or how much of this is are you getting to the point where your skills are really diminishing? I mean, keep in mind, 2 years ago in 2015, Hardy had the shoulder issue, was terrible offensively at the plate. I mean, slugged .311, his OPS was .564. I mean, you're talking about a below replacement level offensive player, even at the shortstop position. And last year bounced back nicely.
I love when you start going Sabre on me in there. You just slide that in. That's beautiful.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's what he was. And then last year, he bounced back. He wasn't the J.J. Hardy of old. I mean, that guy who hit 25, 30 home runs, that guy's not coming back at this point. But last year, look at his numbers. He hit right around 270. He had a 716 OPS. Still, hit 9 home runs, had 29 doubles. He had a respectable season. Wasn't a great season, but you could certainly take that with a guy who still plays above average defense. Now, the problem is what we've seen so far, I mean, hitting 125. And look, the fact that he's 2 for 16, that's not even the issue as much for me. He's not hitting the ball hard. He's not hitting the ball with any authority whatsoever. And that's where you start to question.
He's looking less like a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah.
Like, we're 13 years into this thing for him, and his back's been broken for, look, when they got him, I think he had issues with that. His at-bats had diminished in those years. I'm looking at the stats right now in 9 and 10. It's kind of incredible that he held up as long as he's held up. And they do have a replacement available. His name's Machado, right? But, at what point does the experiment end? I don't know. And he still might hit 280 and be fine this year because he is a gamer. I mean, nobody's going to question his spirit or his baseball soul. They're going to have to pull the jersey off his back. But, I've seen this happen to Surhoff and Rebele and, Bordick and all sorts of gamers. And Bordick's probably a really good example of what he and Bordick are kind of similar players in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and, I think it's way too soon to call it an experiment or to see how long it's going to last. I mean, he had a perfectly fine season last year. I mean, that there was nothing about his season other than just the fact that he's not 29 anymore and hitting 30 home runs this season. Everything else about his season in 2016, I sign off on. I say, he was fine. He was still a quality player. So, again, you don't want to draw too many conclusions on 6 games. He could be fine. I think you can find plenty of players. We just spent 5 minutes talking about Jonathan Scope, who is 25 years old. He's looked very similar at the plate as far as looking kind of really bad.
Yeah, with Scope, it's about him waking up and becoming a better player. With Hardy, it's about him literally physically not aging, quickly and not getting hampered by any nagging thing that Luke, I'm old. I know how that rolls the day after, first time back at yoga. But, at the bottom of the order, I just looked at this, and not when it was 8-1 and they were kicking the ball around. I was looking around at it, every time they come through the order and they have runners in scoring position, and it's Mancini, Scope, and Hardy in there. And, I'm not feeling super confident that they're going to knock in 2 runs at that point. Right now.
Right now, yeah. I mean, they haven't been productive. I mean, and I even wrote that in my blog post at WNST.net, my 12 thoughts on Tuesday night's loss, that the defense was bad enough in the 7th inning, but Scope and Hardy not doing a whole lot with the bat. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, you just said it. I mean, Scope, because he has age on his side, because typically you think of guys like that trending upward and not the opposite direction. you feel good about him still in the big picture. Hardy, when you're talking about a guy who's 34 and has had back issues off and on the last few years, and clearly doesn't hit for the same home run power, and you see him get off to this kind of start, you just wonder. I think no one should be drawing any conclusions based on such a small collection of games, but you do wonder, and it's something that does become it becomes a really I don't know if interesting is the right term, but maybe an uncomfortable situation if it continues because of what you mentioned. I guess the big question is, it's fine to say, okay, you can put Manny Machado at short. What do you do at third base then? Ryan Flaherty, really good defensively there, but you're not going to get much offense there either. But I guess if Hardy's hitting 105 and 6 weeks from now, that would be a way different conversation at that point, even with Ryan Flaherty. But I think you give Hardy the benefit of the doubt, and you just hope that one, the defensive play was a complete aberration, and two, you hope to see him start swinging the bat a little bit more like he did last year, which wasn't great, but it was certainly good enough to warrant him still being a useful player.
He is Luke Jones, Baltimore Luke on Twitter, Luke at WNST.net. All right, I could even break and do a whole segment on this, and we will, and I will be doing a segment on Masson and how I get dumber every night that I put it on, and how the volume's not right. And apparently, you have DirecTV, and it's okay in southern Pennsylvania. I assure you, between every inning, the volume, it's so much louder that when you turn it down during the commercial that you can't hear Thorne and Palmer when it comes back on, which might not be a bad thing. Dude, the Adam Jones jaking it into second base. Look, first off, I don't dislike Adam Jones. I think he's a bit cocky. He's a bit of all of that ball player stuff that, quite frankly, I'm happier that you have to deal with than I have to deal with at this point. And he likes to, pattern himself, stay hungry, and I'm a gamer, and I'm the clubhouse leader and all that. Dude, that was an embarrassment. I mean, and I haven't said that much about Adam Jones. I mean, the bubble blowing aside and all that, and I don't really have any problem with that. And I think we're all in agreement he's an outstanding baseball player. Dude, the ball got by the right fielder. It's rolling toward the wall at Fenway Park, and third base is a long way from right field. I don't want to see you pulling up, going into first base, blowing bubbles on the way to second base, jogging in, and playing that game we used to play on the playground where, tag me, no, I touched the base, ha-ha, at second base. Dude, this is the major leagues, and I can't imagine the steam coming out of Buck Showalter's ears and ass if Buck Showalter's running a tight ship after that at bat. Specifically, I can't have that on television. I can't have that at Fenway Park. I can't have that from my American hero leader. That really pissed me off, and I wasn't the only one. And when I put it out in social media, there are apologists out there saying, relax, it's a double. Dude, there's no... You're down 2-0. There's one out. If you get to third base, you get a run. The meat of the order's coming up. They didn't score the run. He almost got tagged out and was laughing about it. Dude, disgraceful. Adam Jones, shame on you. Thumbs down.
Okay. I mean, you're way more fired up about it than I am. Now, I'll agree with you from a standpoint of, one, I don't think it was going to be a triple, but
I don't either. But you don't jog.
Make them make a throw. Round the bag at second and
round the bag hard, like you mean it, like it's Game 7, like you're losing 2-0 to your division rival midway through a game at Fenway Park. I mean, dude, bad body, bad look, and then when they go kicking the ball around 45 minutes later, and O'Day can't get out of his own way, I'm seeing things here that don't feel Buckish to me. You know what I mean? And it will eventually get laid at Buck's head if they don't win, even though they don't have a fourth and fifth starter and aren't constructed to win, quite frankly. But, this concerns me. And if I'm going to sit and watch a baseball game I tell you what, the Capitals won't be doing that on Thursday night. The Penguins won't be doing. I mean, it's unacceptable to me.
You're talking about playoff hockey compared to game number 6.
Dude, I saw Hardy played with a red, white, and blue jersey on climbing walls for nothing and nobody 2 weeks ago. Don't shake it at Fenway Park when a double might become a triple. I mean, especially when the right fielder misplays the ball. It took a bad angle, you know?
You're directing your anger at the wrong guy. Wellington Castillo had 2 terrible base running plays on Tuesday night that were way worse than what Adam
Well, go get him.
did.
Go get him, by the way. By the way, they wanted Wellington Castillo back on Monday out in San Francisco. Did you see that play? The Giants and the Diamondbacks?
Yeah.
A 22-foot number that turned into 3 runs scored on the bases loaded, and the catcher standing there saying, well, maybe they can bring Castillo back out here. Maybe he would have been a game changer for them. I almost tweeted that on Monday. The Diamondbacks want him back.
Yeah. But no, I mean, and look, I don't even completely disagree with you about Adam Jones. I agree that, at least present the possibility of going to third base. But in the grand scheme of things, I didn't have nearly as much issue with that as I did with Wellington Castillo. 2 different base running plays. One, got a terrible read on the Trey Mancini double to deep right center. I know he's a catcher. I still don't see how you don't score on that ball because, I mean, that was just, that was hit a long way. It was clear that no one was catching that. And, he didn't come close to even having a chance to score there because he didn't pick up the ball for whatever reason. Maybe it's because he hasn't played at Fenway Park a whole lot, but that was a little head scratching, and Palmer even talked about that on the telecast. And then
because it pisses a guy like Palmer off, right? I mean, Palmer doesn't like mental mistakes, and and nor should he. I mean, I know Buck doesn't either, right? I mean, I'm sure Buck would have a few words for him afterward, right?
Right, and then the other play, the single down the left field line in the top of the 7th after Davis had singled to lead off the inning, and it was into the corner, it bounced off the wall, and the throw didn't even come into second base. I mean, how do you not go to second on that ball and give your team second and third and nobody out? I mean, that was.
They did not play good baseball Tuesday night, and I think if Buck
Showalter's
rolling over up at the Sheraton in Boston somewhere, getting ready to play, I mean, if he's assessing Tuesday night's game, that's a 75-win looking team on Tuesday night making mistakes like that.
Many, if you're basing it solely on Tuesday night.
Well, they are good. They have good players, and they're going to pitch okay a couple nights a week. But
I'm talking about just the overall effort and just how they looked. I mean, that was as sloppy as they've looked. And look, you can go back to the last 4 or 5 years, and you'll find a couple games like this every year. I mean, every team's going to have a couple games where you look like little leaguers out there. It happens. It doesn't mean it's not an excuse, but we tend to have a shorter memory when we see something like this. It's alarming because they did play extremely poorly, and if you do play like this often, you're going to be a 90-loss team. That's just regardless of your talent level. But again, I think you look at a track record with most of these guys. We talked about Hardy. That's why I'm still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. O'Day, would you like to see him buckle down and still find a way to get out of it, even though his defense cost him 3 outs? Yeah, but he at least looked better than he did his first 2 outings, was throwing strikes. Got a couple swings and misses. Just this stuff looked a lot more crisp. Overall, they got to start swinging the bats. We're talking about all this sloppiness, and understandably so. But you score 1 run in 9 innings at Fenway Park, and I think the thing that's a little disconcerting about that, it was against another lefty. We talked about how bad they were against lefty pitching in 2016. Even some guys who, like Mark Trumbo and Adam Jones, guys who historically are fine, productive hitters against left-handed pitching, and they were terrible in that department last year. Trumbo's average, Jones's average, really bad against lefties, and really didn't have more than 1 or 2 guys that really hit lefties well last year. So these are the kind of things that you look at. Things that are trends are the things that I look at early in the season. You can look at batting average for just about anyone, and some guys are off to good starts around baseball, and you'll never hear from them again come mid-May.
Wellington Castillo's hitting .353, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
and you just picked on him. Come on.
Yeah, well, I mean, he swung the bat well and he threw well, but his base running, Again, you were fired up about Jones. I was way more fired up about Castillo.
I'm an effort guy, dude. I mean, I'm an effort guy, and I don't like seeing that. That's unacceptable to me.
Fair enough.
And I know it is the Buck. I really do.
Sure. And it's just, but they got to start swinging the bats. That's obvious. Especially with Ubaldo on the hill in Game 2 as they wrap up this brief 2-game set, and they just they have to get going. I mean, it's pretty clear about that. That said, with all the hand wringing, and there was plenty of it that was deserved with the way that they performed on Tuesday night. They're 4-2, and you can look at even a team like Toronto, who both of us expected and predicted to be better than the Orioles this year. The Blue Jays are 1-6 right now, so I'll take the Orioles being 4-2 with their issues as opposed to being 1-6 with the Blue Jays issues at the moment, anyway.
Momentarily.
Yeah, at the moment, and clearly the Orioles need to perform better. But we didn't talk about it much other than in passing. I did like what I saw from Dylan Bundy on Tuesday night. I mean, command and stuff wasn't as electric as it was against Toronto. Didn't see him get as many swings and misses. Clearly had it was a laborious effort. I mean, he had to work hard against that lineup. Didn't have a single 1-2-3 inning, but made big pitches when he needed to, got outs when he needed to, and at the end of the day, you look at his final numbers. It says 3 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings, but clearly should have been 2. Should have been out of that inning if not for Hardy booting the double play ball when O'Day relieved him. But I'll take that from Dylan Bundy, especially when you consider how the other starters have fared, their first time through the rotation.
I've got a lot of hockey to watch, right? And, beginning now, and I know the Caps aren't involved, but I'll be scouting others. And, of course, any night with Ubaldo Jimenez, I tend to try to eat light on those nights. You know what I mean? Yeah, I try to hydrate and eat light. I treat an Ubaldo effort like a yoga class is what I do. I know I'm going to sweat a lot, and there's going to be a lot of stretching. And I have to stay completely focused on my breath. Hey, man, take care of yourself. Loosen up. We're going to get the team back home next week at some point here, and it's going to be a long season. I'm all fired up about the Caps, though, right? I got hockey fever right now. I really do.
As you should. I mean, I feel like we say this almost every year, especially over the last few. But,
yeah, they're the best team. They have a chance.
It's true, yeah. I know Vegas, I think, had them as the second best odds.
They did.
Best odds in the East, but second best odds to win the Cup.
Chicago. It's because
Chicago
they've done it.
had the top
It's because they
odds
do it a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when the Patriots go 11-5. You think, well, the Titans were 13-3. Yeah, sure. The Chiefs won 14 games. Yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's when Vegas chuckles a little bit. And hey, until the Caps do it, I mean, that's kind of the
Caps are the Eagles of the NHL.
Yeah,
sort
exactly.
of, right?
So, but for you and for many other Caps fans in my lives, I'm rooting for it to happen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to know that you want me to be happy.
Exactly. Well, I don't have a dog in the fight, so definitely
take some of that Maryland turtle gear you have that's red and just turn it inside out, and
there you go.
And you'll be wearing red. He is Luke Jones, Baltimore Luke, out on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. We're having some fun around here talking baseball. We got a ton of NFL draft stuff we're throwing in here. Obviously, some great Boston sports writers we've had on, from Dan Shaughnessy and Bob Ryan to Tom Lydon and Trini Kuznarek, who I like a whole lot. And so go check it out. It's all in the Bio Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. Tons of Cap stuff. Craig Laughlin's joining us this week. We've had great conversations with Ed Frankovic, amongst others, E.J. Raddick from NHL Network. We're doing the best work in the marketplace, and if you put the other guys on, you'll know that. You'll taste the difference quality makes, as they would say. Morning newspaper comes to your email inbox every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness. It features Luke's blogs, all of our work here at WNST.net. And it's all $10 a month at planetfitness.com. There's one right around the corner from you. We appreciate their sponsorship. Last but never least, if there's any breaking news at all, you'll get it first on the WNST Tech Service. That's brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis will be here on Thursday, driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I'm Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel, and putting together trips for Green Bay, Nashville, Minneapolis, and Oakland the minute the Ravens schedule comes out. We believe it's going to happen next week. Don't buy into any of that preseason football crop. It's all crop. until it begins. So let's get the schedule out next week. We're working up onto the draft day. We're having some fun around here. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports